Hey, welcome to Gold's Garage, and thanks for tuning in to my channel. I realize there's lots of great videos out there that you could be watching right now, so thanks for watching mine. Please stick with me for a few minutes, and I'll try to make it worth your while. So the main subject of this video is how to run high compression on pump gas, and I'm making that video because I made a variety of videos in the past about managing your camshaft to your compression ratio, pump gas, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And so I took a whole list of those questions and comments that I got as a result of those videos and put them into one video and trying to answer all those things at one time. So if you're trying to run high compression, we'll talk about all that on pump gas. Stick with me and we'll have a bullet list of things. I didn't want to miss anything, so I actually printed it all out for you. So before I get into that, this is what's going on at Gold's Garage. So this is Merrick's Pontiac engine. In the last video, we were doing a bunch of checks. We did check the end thrust on the crankshaft and bearing clearances. So as you can see, all the pistons are in. The short block's assembled. Everything's been checked out and documented. Every part that I can put on the engine is on. All the other parts are cleaned and prepared and ready for assembly. And right now we're waiting for a couple of important parts. And one is the camshaft. The camshaft that's in the video right now is a Compex E-cam that I took out, and we're not going to put that back in. And that's the main issue. We're still deciding on camshaft selection, and we'll give you more update on that. I have had the camshaft in and out, by the way, to check to make sure it fits. There's new cam bearings. It's always, typically I like to put the camshaft in first before I even put the crankshaft in. It's been in, so I know it's okay, but we're not going to use that camshaft, so we had to take it back out. So parts are prepared, and we need to get a camshaft and lifters, and we'll talk about that more specifically when we have that selection made. So the other thing, what's next is Joe Fernandez Pontiac. He's been in the background of many videos. Joe's already, he's got all the parts. That was a 455. That's the one that's got a crack in the block. So we're basically going to build him a new engine. He has a new block, another block, and all the other parts, they've all been machined and machined, and just waiting for me to put them together. So, and next, after that is Todd Brown, and Todd lives in Michigan. Todd is a 65 Pontiac GTO, so I'm going to have 3 Pontiacs in a row here. It's a 389, and he's next on the list. And probably after that, if Todd gets here on time, it'll be after that, is Mike's got a 340 Dodge engine, and we're going to do one of those. I've never done one before, so if you're a Mopar guy, hopefully you're going to enjoy that. So that's our forecast. So back to the subject of the day. So how to run compression on pump gas. I made a bullet list, and Mike will put a screenshot up of everything that I'm talking about here, so you can have it documented. So first question is, people like to run, and one of the things I mentioned before, 3 ways you make power is compression, breathing, and camshaft timing. So compression is important. And so basically, if you want to get the most power, you have to get your compression up. So the question, first of all, is how high and what gas you can use. So typically, my metric has been that I aim for is I look at the end result, which is the cranking pressure in the cylinder with a regular compression gauge. And the number that I use is 180 PSI. Now that's a subjective number. Lots of comments from guys and girls on my channel that they run higher than that. I know David Vizard says 180 is the minimum that he would run. So you can run more. One of the issues for me is once I sell the engine, somebody else takes over. I have no control over what's going to happen to it. So I'm probably erring on the conservative side. So I aim for 180, and 160 to 180 is the range. And the thing you have to remember is there's a diminishing return effect on compression. The higher you get, the less it helps. So if you go from 8 to 9 or 9 to 10, it helps a lot. If you go to 10 to 11, it's still helping. If you go to 11 to 12, it doesn't help as much. So there's a diminishing return. So there's not a lot of motivation to go really high because the amount that you're going to gain on that incremental change, once you get over 10 or 11 to 1 or over 180 psi, it's not going to be that great, in my view anyway. So 10 to 11, and usually to achieve that, you're somewhere in your static compression. If you do the calculation, is somewhere between 10 and 11 to 1 compression ratio to get you that 180 psi with the appropriate cam, because the compression pressure, one of the more critical factors is your camshaft. And I've made videos before. The more compression you have, the bigger the camshaft you have, and that's one of the reasons why. If you have a bigger camshaft as a late closing point of the intake valve, it bleeds off some of that compression at low speed and keeps your compression under control. So you need to do that. And before you even start, as I said, design your static and dynamic compression into your engine before you even start. You can go on Summit online. Summit's got a great calculator. Key in your numbers that you already know, determine your static compression, then go to Google dynamic compression. There's more than one, but one I typically use is the Wallace dynamic compression calculator, and it's a great predictor of what your final compression is going to be. So figure that out before you even buy any parts. The next thing is, once you've got the engine design and you got 100, and if you want to use 200 psi, you can do that, but you have to manage it. So I'll stick to my number, but there's lots of other opinions and views, and I'm sure people are using 200 and managing it very well. So back to that. So the next thing is, a lot of questions is, well, can you run on 87 fuel? Well, my view of that is you got a lot of money invested in your engine. Unless you're going to be running like 100,000 miles with this thing, I would always buy the very best fuel that you can get. And lots of comments about that, because in the country, based on the feedback I get on my comments, some places can only get 91. Some places even have a hard time getting that. Just had a comment yesterday from someone who said, I don't know where they live, they can buy 100 octane fuel. So that obviously makes a big difference. Where I live, you can buy 94, 91 and 94. And so typically we do that. I have dynoed 91 against 94 on certain engines, and it doesn't make that much difference, to be honest with you. But if you got a lot of compression, you're really using the octane to protect your engine more than you are to make power. That's an important point to remember. So use the best fuel that you can. Manage your compression ratio. And I forgot to mention, Mike reminded me today, if you have aluminum heads versus steel heads, you can run a little higher numbers than you can with steel heads, because aluminum is conducts the heat away better and is less likely to detonate. So that's one other factor. So here's a whole bunch of other things you can do. One of them is reducing your timing. If you're going to run on the edge, over 180 psi, for what it's worth, when we dyno an engine, sometimes we might make the most power at 38 degrees. And at 34 degrees, the difference is only 2 horsepower or 4 horsepower or something like that. On the street, you'll never notice it. So my view is, even if that's not the exact point where you make the most power, cut your timing back a few degrees. Your engine will notice it, and it's a little safer. And unless you're racing it, that last couple of horsepower, you're going to have lots anyways. You'll probably be spinning the tires long before you run out of horsepower. So that's one other factor. So manage your fuel-air ratio. So one of the things you have to remember, the stoichiometric ideal mixture for fuel and air is 14.7 using gasoline. We usually make the best power around 13 to 1 most of the time. But typically, the leaner you are, the more likely your engine is going to detonate. The richer you are, the safer you're going to be. So if you run a little bit on the rich side, and I'll show you how to monitor that as we go forward, I think it'll be helpful. So timing, fuel, manage fuel-air ratio, control the temperature in your engine. Here's a really important one. Typically, you like to keep your engine not much over 200 degrees if you can. Now, it won't hurt it to run a little higher than that, but I would aim for 200 degrees. For what it's worth, the CT400 manual recommends 180 to 200. It's a racing engine. And so how do you do that? First of all, you need a good cooling system. So I want to talk about thermostats. People think, well, if I run a different thermostat. So here's how a thermostat works. When you start up your engine, it's cold, the thermostat's closed. If it's a 180 degree thermostat, it opens and allows water to flow from your engine through your radiator and circulate back again. The thermostat only controls the minimum temperature of your engine and how fast it heats up. While that valve is closed, while the thermostat is closed, no water is circulating, so your block's going to heat up more quickly, and that's desirable. But once it gets to where the thermostat is open, the thermostat's not helping you at all. It's only controlling the minimum temperature. And so the maximum temperature depends on your engine and the ability you have to cool it and how hard you're running it. The harder you run it, the warmer it's going to get. So manage your fuel and air ratio. The hotter it is, the more likely it's going to detonate. So try to keep it cool. Okay, I talked about the thermostat. Spark plugs. Start with the coldest spark plug that you can. Hotter spark plug. It's easier to fire it off, yes, but it'll also raise the temperature of your combustion chamber. So the numbers I'm familiar with is AC Delco numbers, and these are the numbers we're using in OEM, GM cars from forever. Not now probably, but they were. So just to get the range, the coldest that I've ever seen is AC Delco 41. So the 4 is just the size of the plug. The second number is the heat range. So 41 is one heat range, 42, 43, 44, 45, and I think there is a 46. So typically a high-performance engine started off in the say a 1968 manual with an AC 43 spark plug. That's a fairly cold plug. A 43 is the plug that's used in all the CT400 race engines, ZZ6 engines, etc. So that's a relatively cold plug. 44 is a little warmer, and 45 is definitely probably too much. So start with a 43. The negative side, if it's too cold, it'll foul. And I'm going to get to how you manage that in a minute. If it's too hot, it won't foul, but it might promote more detonation. So keep your spark plugs, start with the lowest spark plug that you can. And if the 43 is falling on you, then run a 44. For what it's worth, in my Camaro, it's the CT400 engine, basically ZZ6 engine. I run 44 on the street, and it works fine. It doesn't foul and doesn't detonate either. So anyway, keep your combustion chamber temperature down. Spark plugs will help. Okay. Avoid carbon buildup. One of the biggest contributors to detonation is carbon buildup. If you have carbon accumulating on the top of your pistons, we just took this engine apart after it only 500 miles and had lots of carbon on the top of the pistons. The carbon is will to get hot and glow and promote pre-ignition or detonation. So control that as well. So carbon buildup. So one of the ways that you can tell how you're doing is inspect your spark plugs. Run it for a little while, take a spark plug out, have a look at it. If it's white hot and your tip's burning off, you're probably too hot. If it's all black and full of carbon dust, then you're probably too cold. A spark plug is a great indicator of what's going on inside your engine. You don't necessarily have to take them all out, pull one from each bank. After you run it for a little while, take a look at it. And if one of those factors is true, then you can adjust your heat range, and that'll help you get in the zone where you want it to be safe, And avoiding carbon buildup is the way you drive it too. If you're chugging around town in high gear, idling is terrible. Idling, your fuel air mixture is wrong. You can't burn all that fuel. Try to avoid idling, avoid low speed chugging, and keep that carbon from building up because it'll just make it worse. Okay? But your spark plugs. So then the application. The other thing is when you're building your hot rod, you're going to run high compression is your power to weight ratio. If you have a big heavy car and a small engine, it's going to be under a lot more load just to get it moving. So that's going to make it more prone to detonation. But I've talked about this before. My standard metric is you should have at least no more than 10 pounds of car per cubic inch of engine. Okay, so if you got a 3,500 pound car and a 350 engine, you're right on the numbers, right? Or if your engine gets bigger, it's even better. Okay, and then the next thing is your gear ratio. If you have a really high numerical or low numerical gear ratio, then you're more likely going to be lugging that engine. And so the more you allow it to get the RPM up, the less it's going to detonate. Detonation is a bigger problem at low RPM than it is at high RPM. It's just a function of time. At high RPM, a detonation wave doesn't have time to do its damage when you're at high RPM. At low RPM, it does. One of the other ways to do that is converter stall speed. So a higher stall speed converter allows your engine to rev up a little bit before it gets loaded, so it avoids lugging it, and that will help prevent detonation as well. Next thing is your driving style. Okay, don't lug it around in high gear. Keep the RPMs up while you're driving it. The worst scenario for detonation is low RPM and loss of throttle. And that's the best way to destroy an engine. Keep the RPM up, keep the throttle plates not open unless you got the RPM up. And then listen to your engine. Okay, if you hear it clicking and clacking, and it sounds like there's ball bearings bouncing around inside your chamber, then that's probably detonating and you should do something about it. So hope this helps. Give me your thoughts. Please like and subscribe. I forgot to mention that. Once again, it's my honor that you're watching my video channel. We're going to always try to make it better for you. We've got lots of information coming. We will show as much of the detail of this Merrick's build as we go forward. And if we miss that one, well, you'll catch you on Joe's or Todd's Pontiac that's coming next. So the last thing is, normally I call it the tip of the day, and I'm going to call this more like the comment of the day. And the subject of this comment is managing conflict on YouTube. And this is really important to me. And so I actually couldn't stop thinking about this in the middle of the night, so I got up and printed it out just to make sure I didn't forget any points. So here's the problem to start with. Internal combustion engine is very complex. There's millions of iterations of it. There's millions of people modifying them and designing them and stuff. Wide variety of people are interested in this, right from design engineers to backyard mechanics. So disagreement on points, subjects, methodology, whatever is inevitable. It's going to happen and it'll never end, but we have to manage it. So no one knows everything, not even me. I'm the first to admit that. So, but YouTube gives me access basically to the world. I mean, there's video goes out. I've got viewers basically in every country of the world. And I look forward to comments. I've been corrected on things. I had to back and apologize for a couple of things I didn't get right. And that's just fine. I welcome that. We're all learning, okay? So I welcome your comments. I want to continue to learn. And you can learn from watching other people's comments. The issue is, though, that the fundamentals of physics, science, and engineering apply whether it's in a steel mill or a car engine. It's basically the same things, and I try to apply those things in the same way. So here's the problem when people disagree, and there's been a few issues. Maybe people watching this haven't even seen it, but if you read all the comments that's there, people who have disagreements, and that's going to happen. That's fine. But here's the way to manage it, the way I think about it anyway. If you disagree with somebody, that's fine. But bashing your person that disagrees with you is not going to make him wrong. And bragging about yourself is not going to make you right. Okay? Facts are the facts. Don't make it personal. Stick to the issues, stick to the facts, and keep personalities out of the issue. You don't even know who you're talking about. They might be on the other side of the world, for one thing. Okay? The other point is being older doesn't necessarily make you being smarter. And I'm 75 years old, so come from me, that should be a credible statement. So please keep your comments coming. If I'm wrong about something, I welcome it. I just said a couple issues. Somebody took me to task on a couple of things I said that weren't exactly right, and that's fine. Well, that's okay. Well, now thank you very much for correcting me. That's the way you should look at it. Thank you for watching Gold Scratch. Hope you found this helpful, and keep those comments coming.